Hi guys, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're gonna talk about how to TL. So normally I made this video with a specific course and medyo mag-freestyle ako ngayon dito kasi I come from a very unique experience I just wanted to share with you yung experience ko being as a team lead. This guide I wish I knew before I became a team lead. This is for the people who are new team leads. Pwedeng SME ka na na-promote ka bagong team lead or bagong hire kang team lead from a different role or whatever. Naging top processor ka tapos naging team lead ka. Or you're handling a new team lead. Now, i-qualify ko kasi becoming a team lead is different per context at per situation. And i-qualify ko din anong types ng team leads ang in-explain ko. To some degree, not all of this will be needed, but generally, iba-iba din ang requirements sa lead. So, we'll talk about that in a bit, no? Kasi it will depend as the type of background, yung context, yung market, at saka yung role requirements, no? Of course, magiging flexible to kasi based to some degree, if lahat ng tao are as good as they can be, you'd be fluidly moving across what's required of the company, no? And of course, salary doesn't move that much. So, my goal is at the end of this video, you have an idea of how to manage productivity, okay? For me, I cannot cover all of the aspects, engagement, domain specialization, kung health, IT BPO ba yan, or finance, IT BPO ba yan, or contract management, sales, marketing, user experience, reporting, analytics, quality. Hindi ko mako-cover lahat yan. So I wanted to focus only on one aspect ng pagiging team lead, which is productivity. Okay? And yung experience ko coming across different teams that actually deliver on operational requirements will help you get insight on how to become a better team lead. So I will put some segments into this probably sa production now. But madami tayong cover. Who am I? So I've been a team lead for quite some time now. I've been in health and finance, some other teams then. No? I've been included sa pag-create ng contracts. And this is something that will be very important kasi it does impact how you should act within an organization. That's one part of it. The other part of it is as well kung anong type ng BPO ka. I'll make another video about that. Kasi there are different types of BPOs. Merong in-house, di ba? Merong outsourced directly. Meron ding shared service. And based sa setup na ganito, iba-iba din na nagiging outcomes and iba-iba dapat ang reaction mo. So yung type of contract na ginawa will actually greatly influence how you should react and take on additional responsibility. No? Unless nagpapabibo ka or yung strategy ng company nyo, that's a different thing. No? From this discussion, tatanggalin natin yung pagiging strategic mo as a team lead. This is just purely focusing on productivity. And why a lot of team leads fail? Because they don't know how to manage productivity or they don't know their numbers. When we say don't know their numbers, usually they're trying to address productivity. No? What's critical to what is required of the outcome. So, before tayo mag-go into it, I want you to also be aware of the meta. Okay? So when I say meta, you can think of it like a trend. Ano yung uso? And why is this important? Before, in the 1980s, being a team lead, iba yung requirement. And 1990s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2022, iba na din ang requirements. Like right now, magkakaroon ng more focus sa engagement, right? And how do you manage, how do you coach, anong coaching frameworks? Hindi ko i-discuss, maybe another video. But productivity lang muna tayo, no? And this is from a very structured framework. Meaning na meron kang sariling quality team, medyo malaki to, meron enterprise, corporate setting, no? Hindi yung freelance na medyo fluid kayo sa roles na ikaw yung team lead, ikaw din nagbibigay ng technical feedback, ikaw din nag-RCA, and ikaw din yung continuous improvement. Hindi ganun, no? Medyo may structure yung bibigyan ko ng feedback on how you should manage productivity. Okay? So, how to team lead? Madami tayong cover dito. May mga cover natin. Scope. Okay? Charity before contract. Bayan. Scope creep. Okay? Although PM term to, no? Input plus output, no? And here is where a lot of team leads fail. Yung difference ng output, activity, tsaka effort. Okay? This is where a lot of things happen. And then, of course, meron ding variance in input, process, at saka activity. So, pag sinabi ng complexity ng task, it would fall into one of these, no? So, pay attention to that a little bit later, no? Then, measurement and reporting. Okay. Complexity. Okay. Other non-standard tasks, management operating systems, rework. Rework is very important, no? Tsaka, siguro automation, I'll handle a different team. CI automation, business excellence, operational excellence, siguro hindi ka handle a different part. Okay, so let's finally start. Productivity. When you are in an operational role as a team lead, the difference between an operations lead and a project manager is you're doing something consistently required. Meaning, there's some sort of security sa task mo. Kasi you are expected to take on this type of task, tas merong trade-off na yung gagawin. So much so na may contract within two companies. It could be a 3-year contract, 5-year contract, 7-year contract, 10-year contract, or 1-year contract. No? Depende kung gaano ka galing bumenta yung ano nyo, or gaano kailangan, or whatever reason kung paano maging kontrata. We usually call this a master contract. And most operations leads do not know this. Okay? And why is that? Nagkakaroon ng flexibility yung companies, both entities, the service recipient and the service provider, kung ano yung pwede nilang ipasok doon. Now, who usually loses here is depende sa pay. Kung masyadong binarat yung kontrata, lugi ka. And you take on additional tasks, lugi ka. Kasi kahit gaano ka bait ka, no? At kulang yung pera nyo, pang-hire ng isang tao, pero kailangan ng isang tao, kailangan mo ng change request. Okay? So, change request is saying na amending contract or something like that. Or pasama siya. Or magkakaroon ng additional contract on top of. No? Parang extension ng contract or amendment, pwedeng something else para ma-add on. Why is this master contract important? The master contract should, ideally, no, write kung anong mga activities na gagawin mo. Activity A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay? For example, order entry, order management ang contract, no? And order entry ang hawak nyo, order processing, o order entry correction, working with the EDI team to correct stuff, no? So, pwedeng madami kayong babaguhin within that. Now, the problem is sometimes meron kayong mga pinapagawa na dahil gusto magpabibo ng mga tao within the contract. Yeah, we'll take that. Hindi nila alam, hindi bayad yun. There's a problem with that. Another cause of this might be hindi kasama sa contract yon, okay? Or hindi na stipulate. Katulad lang yan ng any relasyon. No? A contract is a manifestation of a social obligation. Or it's a social contract between two entities, na? Company A and Company B. Now, how deep the relationship will say how stipulated it is and how well they articulate their needs for the contract. And bear with me kasi this changes the landscape on how you should react on, take lang ng trabaho, no? Hindi mo alam, disengage na yung tao mo. Iniwan ka ng tao mo the next 3 months, no? Medyo dito, kailangan mo rin mag-pushback kung team lead ka. Or at least demand mo kung asan yung change request. Kasi kahit baligtarin mo at pinadaming trabaho at umuwi yung manager mo, hindi ka binigyan ng additional tao, wala kang increase. Kahit baligtarin mo, usually wala kang increase, no? And kung masyadong barat yung kontrata, wala silang pang ano, unless mayroong ibang kontrata na ipang-fund nila doon, which usually does not happen, no? Unless sobrang laki na ang dami nyo ng hawak na kontrata. So, be mindful din kung gaano kalaking service center nyo. Going back to service center, depende din kung paano mag-react, sabi ko, based on yung type ng contract, no? Kung pure play outsourced ka, no? Pure play BPO ka. Unless it's stipulated na may variable dun sa clause na when we take on additional task, you will pay this additional. So for example, may menu of services. Let's say merong 10 activities na covered doon. Anything else na variable, we could have a pricing. Not everybody is smart in putting that in their contracts, no? So going back to productivity, there's a list of set activities that you should be doing, okay? Now, as a team lead, if you are doing additional tasks all of the time, you should just ask your operations manager, your service delivery lead, your contract manager, if that is included in the scope of work. Okay? Very important yon. And if you don't get a yes or no, you're not talking to the right person. Okay? Why is this important? Kailangan mo distinguish if that activity should be something you would be doing contractually. Okay? Kasi, kapag sila oo ng oo, ang time mo ang sinasacrifice, same ang sweldo mo, lugi ka. Lugi ang mga tao mo. Being a team lead, it's your responsibility to know if you're taking on other tasks that are out of scope. Okay? So, yun yung tinatawag nating scope creep. Okay? Take on an additional task. Another thing might be a spike in volume. Okay? So, sometimes may contracts na sinasabi, you take on this much time off or may mga PQ price times quantity, no? Type of contracts na per kulang ang ma-process nyo. Kung lang ma-process nyo, then syempre, iba din yung magiging behavior mo. So, the type of contract usually hindi to sinishare sa team leads. Depende din kung how platicurtic yung inyong hierarchy or how tall yung vertical nyo, no? Yung structure ng company nyo. Pero, be careful kung na-share sa'yo to, sometimes kasi nakakademonyo pag nakikita mo to and that's why it has been a practice na you don't show it to a team lead level, no? Kasi nandun yung prices, sweldo, and some people deserve thinking about, hindi na pag-usapan yung salaries, no? Maybe I'll do something about comp ratio and comp and ben in the future. But going back, kapag ka meron kang productivity at alam mo na ito yung activities, no? Kasi hindi papakita sa'yo, the only option you have is to ask kung kasama siya. Kung hindi, you ask for a change request. Right? Or magkakaroon ng backtrack ng billing. Now, why is this helpful sa entity mo kung ikaw yung service provider that you ask for a change request? The change request will then initiate yung chargeback. Okay? So, kung meron silang hiningi on top of, for example, nagkaroon spike in volume kasi nag-product recall, then pwede ka mag-chargeback. No? Hindi yung OT kayo ng OT, tas pizza lang ang kapalit. Kapalit nun, buhay mo. Kapalit nun, health mo. Yung sacrifice mo, ang happiness mo, spending time with your family, may newborn ka or something like that, no? So be careful din. Although, sometimes kasi, well, not most of the time, no? Enterprises prefer yung mga tao na like, push lang ng push. Pero be mindful kasi your team might have different priorities sa life nila. It's also your adjustment to make. Although hindi mo resources, adjustment mo to make as a team lead din for those activities, no? So, how do you manage productivity? Number one, inventory. Okay? A lot of people don't know all of the activities that happens within their organization or at least within your scope, no? Pag sinabi kasing team lead ka, you're team lead to a particular scope, language, domain specialization, no? And pag dumami yun, dumadami scope mo, dapat kumukonti yung tao mo. Okay? So, let's just stick to an example na isa lang ang hawak mong scope. Pero kahit you're handling one part, let's say, hawak mo lang is accounts payable, no? So, nasa may procurement side ka lang. Okay? Hindi ka na sa procurement, sa payables ka lang, no? Procure to pay, nasa payable side ka lang. So, ang scope mo lang is like, issue ng payment, no? Check mo to, GRIR, blah, 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 no? So, ngayon may sinabi, gawin mo itong ganitong report. No? Unang-una, reports, additional meetings, sometimes hindi yan stipulated sa contract, no? So, i-inventory mo. So, meron tayong tinatawag na standard inputs, right? So, could be anything na ginagawa sa AP. Okay? Kung AR ka, kung anything na ginagawa sa enrollment, sa individual enrollment or group enrollment yung ginagawa mo, no? So, after nun, have a list of MOS. MOS yung tinatawag kong Management Operating System. Ito yung mga regular meetings na. So, this could be your quality meetings, it could be your reports calibration, other meetings, no, engagement, training requirements, no? So, some people call it shrinkage. But shrinkage is a fancy word that you call it non-standard tasks. It's usually classified or called by your workforce team na it's a shrinkage, no? Training, health check-ups, safety drills, stuff like that, no? And then on top of that, merong mga escalations. So, let's be honest, as a team lead, you would be forced to face escalations. Have an estimate for that. Kasi escalations are very variable in terms of time and attention you need for them, as well as effort. So pag root cause mo pa lang that different ways and baka tumagal ka doon just for the root cause. And then the solution might be a project. The solution might be a one-off thing. Pwedeng ikaw din na mag-drive nung project, no? But I strongly recommend hindi. Unless ipapabibo ka, that's part of your plan. Magkaibang discussion yan. Okay? So, have an inventory. That's the first step. Have a list of items na ginagawa nyo, the standard and non-standard. I am so amazed all of the time when I ask this and I get a list and I stop and I ask the manager na kompleto ba to and sometimes kulang. You can't blame them kasi madami silang team lead na hawak no, especially pag naman yung team leads na hawak nila. Pero pag pinunta mo yung team lead at pinunta mo yung mga tao, they would see like almost always nagdo-double. Okay? What does this show you? The bigger the enterprise is, the bigger the company is, the more that disconnected the team leads are from what their team is actually doing. Okay? So, it pays to inventory. Kung ikaw yung team lead, you ask each of your members kung meron silang ginagawa. And there are so many ways to do this. One is just asking. Number two, looking at their calendars. Okay? Number three is actually sitting down with them or uupuan mo sila isa-isa per day. Anong ginagawa niya? Anong ginagawa niya? Anong ginagawa niya? No? And the inventory is, it's some sort of unethical na if you're masyado kang nagano. Pero just make sure that you engage them na what you're trying to do is just try to observe ano ba yung mga ginagawa natin. Okay? So, kung ano yung ginagawa nila, keep as is, wag mong baguhin, and we'll keep that as, the list of activities. Next, magkakaroon ka ng list of time for them. How much time is required to complete a particular activity? Now, hindi natin i-cover yung rework now, pero we'll go to that in a bit. Yung time is variable because when you produce an output from operations, the input is may request, and there's a person. And each person would have their own flavor of doing things. No? Meron pa rin tayong remnants sa Industrial Revolution na we want input, process, output. And there's always been greater challenges right now kasi like people are demanding quality of life, not just okay, I want a job that pays, no? And sometimes yung speed at variability of how fast something comes and gets finished is yung activity, yung process. It could be the output requirement, it could be the input. So yung type of request might be an overhaul request as opposed to a simple request na change the name of ganito. Okay? That's a simple request, but there are more complex, like create a new account, right? So kung customer master ka or vendor master ka, you create a new account as opposed to modify one line item or one plant code sa ERP or baguhin mo lang sa Salesforce, no? Or something like that, no? Baguhin mo yung marketing campaign, something. So, the input could be variable, the process might be variable, but also the input is a person. Okay? So yung input, the type of request, the person, yung equipment niya to do that. So for example, if you ask somebody to do something within SAP, that's probably faster as opposed to asking somebody to do something na yung ERP nila is manual or walang ERP or naka-terminal sila black and red, no? There are advantages, disadvantages, mga pwede mong automate yun, pero that's a different topic altogether. Process might be different as well. So as you would imagine, kung creation, there would be, creating factories, creating ledgers, as opposed to babaguhin lang, you go to it and change it, mabilis, no? So, nagkakaroon ng variability in output. And I think a lot of leads struggle with this. The most critical thing is like differentiating between activity, output, and effort. Now, measuring how you're performing is the third step. No? But first step is like have a list, okay? Make sure this list is complete. If you cannot build yung total hours ng mga tao mo, then something's wrong. Kung may nag-OT, okay? Pag may nag-OT, tapos nakita mong wala din yung activity, may something wrong. No? So you have to go back and check what that is. Don't spend forever too. Okay? It has to be a balance na you have to sacrifice some of the time on how fast you need to come up with a report, no? To assess it. For example, ang timeline ko lang is, okay, next week, come up with a capacity plan. Okay? So that means I have an inventory, saan ko lang makuha to, yung sources of data ko, nature and sources of data. I have some knowledge of it. And the more I do these types of reports, let's say, hiningi ako every week, nagkakaroon ako ng proficiency. Okay, kulang to last month, pwede mong i-add doon, no? List and time. So, yung list and time and volume. Okay? Ilan yung pumapasok? Now, volume could be different. For example, an escalation might be 1 to 3. Okay? An escalation might be 5 to 7. Okay? Dragged meetings could be take 7 to 10. And ours will be 1, right? And that changes per month. So, kailangan meron ko ding flexibility for that. No? Hindi pa tayo nag-capacity. We're just listing, okay? At this point, your goal as a new team lead is inventory of where we are right now. Take a snapshot. Yun lang ang goal mo. You're not going to change. And a lot of people fail because they try to change things too fast without really understanding where it's from right now. Anytime I do consulting, I try to give a picture of where they are and where they want to be. Pag hindi mo na-establish to, you usually can't get people to where you want to be. Kasi they don't understand how that would translate and what they're doing connecting to how they're gonna get there now. So, you involve people within your team. Siyempre, brasuhin mo sila kung ayaw mo explain, no? Pero siyempre, maganda explain mo sila. So, ito tayo, ito yung roadmap natin, gagawin natin, ito yung situation natin. Mag-accounting tayo kung ilan tayo, volume at task, kaya i-count natin sila. Now, pag some of the tasks, hindi mo talaga ma-measure. So, magkakaroon ka ng estimates, no? And doon nga papasok yung variance ng measure mo ng input, price, or output for something. No? So, meron kang activity, volume, time. Now, pag in-add mo lahat yon, magkakaroon ka ng total number of hours. Okay? Realistically, I've seen shrinkage na 7.1, 5.6, no, 6.3, 5.1. Pero kapag in-account mo lahat ng leaves, okay, assuming walang mga bibong tao at walang nagkasakit, right? I think that's a silly estimate. I think we should be estimating for na maubos lahat ng vacation leave, okay? And the reason is you're going to come up with a baseline capacity. Depende din sa purpose. If your purpose is to project, meron ka ng min and max, then yung depletion ng yung shrinkage mo should be like on the lower end, no? Assume na 5. If you took out all of the leaves, no? Walang ML pa to, walang ML, walang PL, it should be around 200 days in a year lang. Ganun ka konti a year is like really so short na you can do so little, especially pag napakalaki, daming domain specialization, no? Anyway, going back. Meron ka ng list, meron ka ng time, meron ka ng volume. Ibang volume would be estimated. Pwedeng, I think escalation is like 3. I think I spent 5 hours dito. So you add all of these, no? Tas to total hours. Total hours. Ngayon, meron ka ng snapshot where you are. Okay? Now, if the time is different from what it is, right? Dito mo na ngayon i-erase activities na scope out, scope in. Scope ba itong mga to? A, B, C, D, activity, D, E, F. Tatanungin mo sa contract manager. You need a straight answer, yes or no. Okay? Ngayon, kapag ka no, then ask for a change request. Okay? We need a bill back. Ganito. And you ask for something para, okay, magbigay tayo ng bonus sa mga tao natin. As a team lead, you're demonstrating you're strong like this. But it's not good for all OMs. Some OMs are, gusto nila sila bida. No? So, ayaw nilang pinagsabihan sila. No? So, you have to plant an idea sa head nila na, it's your idea. Actually, may problema tayo. I don't know what to do. Like, yeah, you can play coy. But I think that worked for me for some time. Kasi madami sa mga enterprises ang very egotistic, I realize. No? Especially pag may mga titles sila. Pero their basics are really poor. Especially pag kinumpare mo sa may mga freelancers or diretso sa client. Especially mga may breadth na experience. No? Anyway, so, that's one. You got a list. May kulang activities. The other is actually proficiency sa time. As you would imagine, somebody, pag binibigyan mo ng feedback, nag-i-improve yung proficiency niya. Okay? Pag meron kang mga frequently asked questions na easily accessible sa kanila or meron ko common drivers, na-flatten mo yon, no? Magkakaroon ka din ng estimates at mag-i-improve yun over time. Now, tandaan mo pag nag-i-improve over time, it doesn't mean that the contract did change. Okay? What was agreed on in volume at how fast they're transacted or completed, activities are completed, yun yung nasa contract. Pag improve kayo, you earn that time. Hindi maintindihan ng ibang tao, you earn that time. Na dahil proficient kayo, your team has the chance to relax. Okay? Pag na-stabilize mo na, pwede na kayo magtanggal ng tao. Okay? When I say magtanggal ng tao, doesn't mean na you sack them. You repurpose them for another need ng business. Kasi hindi maubusan ng need yan. wala akong kilalang business na, hindi na kailangan ng tao. No, not really. Kung lalo na very competitive na ngayon, no, when it comes to talent, there's always a lack of great talent. So, kapag naayos mo na yung productivity part na yun, sabi mo na yung mga scope, out of scope, yung mga nag-increase ng volume, right? Yung mga spike ng volume, sinabi mo nag-increase ng ganito, pwede mo ding i-ask yun sa contract. Pero pag sinabi sa yung contract manager mo, no, or nung sinabi sa master contract na, wala tayong volume agreement, no? Or wala tayong speed agreement. Depende sa type of contract again, no? Ngayon, magkakapacitize kaya, no? So, the solution na ipapropose mo, where you want to be to improve your leadership, no, is based on productivity lang. Solely is just to come up with a strategy to address that. So, you manage it based on input, process, output. If there is something that is not natatagalan, nakikita mo tumatagal yung handling time, variance, you could take a look at kung ano yung activities mo yung high variance, okay? You can also take a look at yung mga risks na pumapasok and preventing them, no? So, risk control plans using a FMEA. Kung may data ka, pwede ka ding gumamit ng root cause analysis to understand and address them, or you can actually ask for help. I need help with this. Or sometimes you might ask for additional head. That is another thing that some team leads do not do. They all think that it's cost savings. Sometimes it's best to ask for help. Okay? Don't be afraid to ask for help, especially if the volume is very, very high and you're expecting growth. Okay? So what do I mean by expecting growth? I'll give you an idea. No? I based my career on where the market is moving. So at the time na lumipat ako sa health, nagkaroon ng Obamacare. At the time na lumipat ako sa may oil and gas, there was a pressure kasi US had mining on their west. So nung nagkaroon na ng mining, nagkaroon ng price pressure, nagkaroon ng price competition, napilitan sila mag-outsource, doon ako lumipat tapos using SAS, doon ako lumipat sa more IT, SAS type, AI type of project management, no? And automation. So, yeah, and then before I moved to energy, nakita ko na, magkakagera, okay, magkaka-shortage ng energy. Yun naman resources naman talaga ang nagde-drive or ng value. Why do people have wars in the first place, right? They want more. Anyway, so, after mong ma-address yun, no, you have an idea of where you want to go, you would then go to the problem of escalations. Kasi kahit anong gawin mo, mapapa-overtime ka. Okay? Hanggat hindi mo na-stabilize yon. Pag sinabi mo stable, very predictable na. No? It's measurable. Alam mo yung mga activities na ma-measure mo siya, repeatable, at saka predictable. Okay? You'd go to escalations. Before we go there, let's go to measurable. No? So, when you're trying to measure something, here's where a lot of leads miss the difference between effort, output, and activity. If you measure based on output, okay? If you count based on output, it discredits yung input at saka yung variability in the process. For example, how many tickets did you close? Okay? But the ticket types is create an account as opposed to modify the name on the account. Okay? Magkakaroon ng variability, right? Unless i-segment mo siya, no? And you have a powerful way of segregating it sa ERP mo or sa Salesforce mo, mahirap siyang gawin, no? So, unless you have that ability, mas madali mo siyang. The more drill down your activity is on output, then good, okay? Now, let's talk about activity. Kasi one output might require several activities within your team, okay? And effort is productivity, which means how much time they put in. Again, if you measure someone based on their effort, sometimes they put in more effort than necessary. Okay? That might be a good thing. It also may be a bad thing. Sometimes, your client might want some faster processing. Sometimes, it might be, I'll give you an example. Sa US, meron silang tinatawag na open enrollment. This happens at the end of the year. So, everybody renews their insurance at the start of the year. When this happens, people want speed. But of course, at the other times of the year, na hindi naman ganun ka-seasonal, no? Hindi quarterly, financials. Like financials, for example, are very, AP ka, AR, or general ledger, right? Asset, intercompany, depreciation. Nandito ka, you're very time-bound. You cannot change that. Kasi if you did make an adjustment at the end, after it's called the topside adjustment, you will get the wrong heads looking. Right? So anyway, you don't want topside adjustment kung financial ka. Kung may seasonality yung, you have to pay attention to that then, no? Especially sa capacity planning. I won't go into details there. But remember that some activities, there's no best way to do it, no? What I realized is you have to just run with what you have unless it is so beneficial to change the measurement system. Okay? I would ride the wave if you want to do a change. For example, merong gusto yung operations lead mo. Although alam mo na, parang, kailangan magbago tayo ng accounting ng work from activity to output or from output to effort. No? So, based on productivity, based on activities na closed, or based on output, sometimes it would be best to just ride the wave pag may gustong change yung leadership mo. Doon mo isabay. Sometimes, kailangan ikaw mag-push kasi stressed ka na masyado and nag-aalisan yung mga tao, no? Tataka sila, bakit ng tenure is mapakababa? Yung pala hindi na-account lahat ng ginagawa nila. I think it also will help you to recognize the people who are winning sa productivity. No? So, awarding, write-ups, lagay mo ito yung mga pinakamadaming na process ganito, pinakamadaming na process na complex, right? Or pinakamabilis mag-process ng complex. Yan, should award those types. No? So there are a lot of ways you can reward people and give them a medal. Clap, no? Thank you. Diba? Productivity in a nutshell is that. But the biggest problem with productivity in my experience is just no non-standard things. Yung mga biglaang pasok, no? So